for literally 3 minutes and then we're done.
It'll be fine because we'll be until 7 or 8. So you just pop back
What?
in whenever you want. No, just FYI, I got called 45 minutes ago that I had a pipe burst in my basement. So I have been juggling all of this. The insurance company and ServPro is on the way. So
It's live
after
streamed.
this,
The
I
whole
can
world
do-
knows your problems now.
Yeah, they do.
Dave, if you would like, I'll take over for you and you run home and take care of that pipe.
I'm going to, as soon as we finish this, I will be driving home tonight. In the meantime, are we live?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to
Yes,
welcome
we're
everybody
live.
to the Motor Vehicle Transportation Subcommittee. Today is Tuesday, March 15th, and it is 4:49 p.m. I would like to start with HB 254, and I want to acknowledge that I think that Patrick's been going back to back, and so we're going to have kind of a condensed list tonight. It's going to be vote what we can and talking and preparing for tomorrow and Thursday, but Patrick has been kind of running hard, so we're not going to be really long tonight.
Thank you, Patrick. We appreciate you.
Yes,
You
and
do.
we're going to give
Problem.
you a break.
I enjoy working with you all too.
Okay, so HB 254, Polakovich's Cars Bill, State Highway Administration, pedestrian bicycle fatalities. My understanding was we pretty much have that fiscal note completely under control, right, Patrick? Where are we? Are we ready to move this one?
Can you make
Yes,
the print a little bit bigger, please?
I'm sorry, what?
Can you make the image a little larger, please?
Sure.
Thank you, Molly.
There you go.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, Patrick.
Yes, we talked about the fiscal note over the past week, and we don't know exactly what it is, but it's not what it shows in the note, which is 1 to 1.5 million. It's a lot lower than that. And SHA is not worried about the fiscal note at all.
Okay, so as it stands now, it calls for a study after a fatality, right?
Yeah,
Which they do anyway, right?
right, which is what brings the fiscal note down significantly. But it also makes the studies available, publicly available.
Which
Got
is
it.
the big piece because they haven't been that publicly available. Okay.
Move favorable.
Second.
All
Oh,
those-
wait a minute.
We have an amendment.
Oh,
And I have a question. Wasn't this the bill that we wanted to seek more information about? Because if they post this information, there was a question about why they don't post other information.
We did have that conversation.
And they were supposed to go back and check with their legal counsel about, because Neil actually brought it up. Delegate Parrott brought it up about if they were going to post this, because they apparently don't post any other information online. And so wondering why this would be different than anything else that they don't post and why they don't post the other data.
Yeah, I think that was homework. Pilar, would you like to chime in on that?
Sure. So we do, just to clarify, we do post publicly crash data. It's not, granular, and it's pretty like high level numbers. And so I think, in talking with SHA and talking with Patrick, SHA doesn't have concerns about the types of information we'd be producing and publishing online with respect to these reviews, because one, we wouldn't produce anything that we couldn't produce via or wouldn't be allowable under like the PIA, and we wouldn't be producing any sort of information that was protected. PII we wouldn't produce. So, I think the way the bill is written really gives SHA flexibility to provide the right information and what, the public needs as far as transparency, to see what kind of review produced with respect to these accidents and fatalities. So there's no concern on SHA's end on, I think we can craft it in a way that is not, like I said, producing anything that we wouldn't already produce if requested.
Delegate Boyce and Delegate, are you good?
Yes, I have a question. Did you run this past the district traffic engineers?
We spoke directly with the administrator, Tim Smith, about this bill, our legal counsel. So we've spoken to and Nicole, I don't know who else.
Hi, yeah, this is Nicole Stafford from SHA. Yeah, we, discussed this over with Tim Smith, the administrator, the various deputy administrators. And as Pilar said, they were okay with moving forward with posting the information, without any of the PII, whatever we want to, produce in PIA, things of that nature.
You'd extract that information from the report, is what you're saying?
I'm sorry, Barrett. One more time.
You're saying you'd extract that information from the report.
Right. We wouldn't produce anything that we wouldn't have produced, or that isn't allowed under the PIA. And we understand there's a risk, right? There is a risk with posting this information, but it's a risk that we're willing to take.
Okay. Everybody good? So we had a first and a second on the amendment, which we talked about. Is there any further discussion on said amendment? Okay. So all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay. Amendment carries. On the bill.
Move favorable.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
Okay, discussion on the favorable motion on the bill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstention?
Opposed.
You're opposed?
Mhm.
Okay. Bill passes. We are going to get to 487, but I did want to try to, that's going to take a little time. I wanted to eke out maybe one or two if we could.
Sure.
Patrick, I know we didn't talk about this, but 813, what are your thoughts on moving on 813? Speed camera school buses monitoring systems.
What does that do?
Well, I had just sent, I should have CC'd Pilar, sorry, Pilar. Mitch Baldwin, the reprint, because the bill was rewritten. All it requires now is that Montgomery County count the violations and do a report, and then an analysis of the top 10 sites where the speed school bus cameras are issuing tickets, and then trying to develop remedial measures.
So like engineering things, like because it's the road, is something wrong with it, or?
Or engineering, moving the school bus stops, that type of thing.
Why do they keep happening on those numbers at those spots? If there's an answer to the why, and then maybe in addressing it.
I can't speak for them, but I know State Highway is not happy with the original bill, and I don't blame them. But I think this bill is way different and much.
Is Montgomery County okay with these changes?
Yes.
We are, yeah.
And we have our letter from the county, right?
Yes.
Okay. Pilar, any comment? Does anybody want to say anything?
No, I did get the reprint, Patrick. Thank you. And we haven't had too much time to look at it, but I think it's safe to say I think we would be okay with this.
Okay.
It's way different than the original for sure.
Yes.
Okay, so we have amendments, right, Patrick?
Well, yeah, the bill basically is amended.
Is the amendment? Yeah, it's been rewritten somewhere. Okay, so Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you. So I just want to, I just got these amendments just a few minutes ago, literally. And I just want to know if State Highway has had a chance to look at them and if they have any concern, because I really haven't had much time to look at this.
Yeah. Sorry, Pilar.
No, go ahead, Nicole. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I also just got the amendments, and I know that, Mitch probably also just saw them as well. So we haven't had much time to go through the specific changes, but as it's been reiterated, it has, significantly changed. The bill looks completely different. So I would need a little bit more time to go through it.
Delegate Jacobs, are you asking to hold the bill?
I am. Thank you.
Okay. We'll hold the bill till tomorrow.
Thank you.
Sure. HB 535, Patrick, Washington Suburban Transit Commission, Montgomery County Commissioners.
Oh,
Is
this
even our
bill, what's that?
Is this even our bill?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
This has to do with the Montgomery County members and as amended, the Prince George's County members on the Transit Commission.
Right.
Currently, they're term limited to 2 terms, and it takes away the term limits. The original bill was Montgomery, the members from Montgomery were the term limits were removed, and then it was amended to include the members from Prince George's.
Do we have to vote the amendment?
Yes.
I'll move the amendment.
For a second.
Second.
Patrick, do we have everything we need from both delegations, letters, on
Yes.
the amendments and everything else? We're clear
Yes.
on that? Okay. Further conversation? Oh, Pilar, I see your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, and I hate to throw a wrench into things. We're good with the bill. The only thing I would request or maybe throw out there is the gubernatorial appointees. We'd also like to be to have the term limit repealed for the gubernatorial appointees.
I don't think the local delegations would support that.
No.
Okay. Just throwing it out there.
Be a
Appreciate
standalone
that,
bill
but-
for you next year.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, maybe the governor could put it in next
that's
year.
fine.
Thank you, Pilar.
Thank you for hearing me out.
Appreciate it. All right, so on the amendment, we had a first and a second, I think, right? All those in favor signify by saying aye on the amendment.
Aye.
Aye, on the amendment.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Pilar, are you opposed?
You got it.
Okay, on the bill.
There you go.
move the bill as amended.
Second,
Great. Any
Which bill number is
discussion?
this?
Further discussion on the bill. This is HB 0535. It's Montgomery, Prince George's County bill. Any discussion on the bill? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Bill carries. Okay, the few other bills, we're gonna get to Delegate Foley's bill, HB 811, that could be a real handful. So Delegate Love, I don't know if you agree, and Patrick, maybe just, we'll hold that one for a minute. And then HB 632, is that, what is that, Patrick? Is that gonna,
This is a red line bill. We used to get these a lot in the aughts. Obviously haven't gotten them so much in the last 8 years, but we generally have had bills over the years that kind of shape and guide the NEPA process and the like with the red line. And that's what this bill does. It requires department to take steps necessary to complete planning, preliminary engineering, and NEPA Policy Act process for the red line and the MARC rail extension to Johns Hopkins Bayview. Prepare a plan for funding, take maximum advantage of possible federal funds and the like. And that's pretty much it. It's a lot of budget language, and there is an amendment. The amendment just tweaks a couple spots where they make appropriations contingent on federal funding, specifically in page 3, line 5, subsection C of the section, and contingent on the receipt of federal funds, the department shall take those steps I just described. And then page 4, line 17, required $200,000 appropriation to the mayor's office for employment development for workforce development, employment development for workforce development and small minority and women-owned business development. And that's also contingent on the receipt of federal funds. So it's basically an amendment of budget language. And we're secondary on this to appropriations too.
okay, so we're secondary, has Approps moved anything or done anything with it?
Oh yeah, we wouldn't be talking about it if they hadn't moved it.
Okay, so they've passed it all out. They're good with the appropriate, the fiscal note to it.
Yes.
And they pushed it to us. So I think it's a study. It's only funded if the feds fund it. Approps is good with it. Any questions?
We move the bill as a, oh, sorry, Regina.
Go ahead, Delegate Love. Oh, I'm sorry. I see Delegate Boyce. Do you have a question?
I don't know if this is relevant. Maybe Patrick can ask this. I mean, we did have a whole red line file, right, of the plans. Are those considered as well? So that it's not a total full restudy? I'm just curious.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. This is, I mentioned that they had these a lot in the arts, and that's what you're talking about.
Okay,
And this bill specifically says that it should build upon previous processes.
got it. And only if there's federal money.
For certain aspects of it.
Got it. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Nora, I see your hand up.
Hi, everyone. Just a reminder, I'm from MTA. So part of the problem, like Delegate Boyce just brought up, is that those studies were done in like 2012 and 2013. So the landscape around that has changed significantly, not just here, but also at the federal level. There's a lot of different guidance on those kind of programs. So we would have to redo a lot of the original, if not all of the original studies. So, you know.
Okay.
I think that's probably understandable.
It is, yeah. It's been a minute or two. So.
Yes.
Okay, so are there amendments that we have to pass as well, Patrick, or is it clean out of?
Yeah, just the
right?
tweaking budget language amendments.
Okay, amendments. Did you just move the amendments, Delegate Love? Second? Is there a second out there? Thank you. All right, any discussion on the amendments? Okay, all those in favor of the amendments, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, on the bill as amended.
Move the bill. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the bill as amended? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Bill carries. Okay, great. So we've passed 3 so far. Again, 811, it's just going to be a little bit of a mess. So let's just go to 487, Delegate Foley's commercial vehicles, non-consensual towing requirements. I know that both of the towers and the truckers have been earnestly working at trying to come up with a compromise, and I know there's already been some compromise made, and it's getting closer and closer. So with that said, where are we? Where's Lewis and Andrea? Andrea, you go, and then Lewis, you go.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so I guess I think areas of agreement would be that there's no approved rate setting in the bill. Instead, the towers would apply or provide rate sheets to the Department of State Police, and allowing those to be made public if requested. We would allow motor truck and owner operators to be able to choose the tower of their choice. This would be for police initiated tows only, and that would fall under the state police, as that is provided for in the statute. I guess that applies to the next change would be changing wherever the bill says non-consensual, it would be changed to say police initiated.
Next.
And we also support the establishment of a complaint process that MSP would establish. I would say several of these items, with the exception of the definition change, these are things that they've been in ongoing discussions with the Department of State Police, that this would codify those and ensure that they occur. The 2 problem areas, again, we've changed too much. We have had conversations. We did have a meeting last week with all parties to discuss, but my client still has concerns with the ban on per pound billing. More so, I think, because it's an industry standard. I think my client feels that if we're going to change and go to something else, we really need time to look at the issue and time to discuss it and meet with motor truck and OIDA to figure out what those parameters would look like. For
Mr.
them,
Chair,
they are.
I'm sorry, I have to leave to go to an appropriations bill hearing.
Do you have a question?
Mr. Chair,
before we
could I
go?
just make a comment before
Yeah,
I leave?
absolutely.
I'm
Go
so
ahead.
sorry, Andrea, to interrupt you. I'm like, they're like, you're next, come over. So I just want to say, I think that this is a really important bill. And that there have been a lot of concessions by the trucking companies. There are already several counties that prevent per pound billing. And that we just cannot have cargo being held hostage. Like, it cannot continue. And so I am in favor of doing something on this bill, but I have to run to appropriations right now for a bill hearing, and then I will be back.
So Delegate Learman, just so you know, our intent tonight is to hammer out what this is.
Great.
And then vote on it tomorrow.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, great. All right, I guess just to continue. So I think my client feels strongly that they're performing a public service. They are there to clear the roadways when an unfortunate situation occurs. And that, each accident is different, each recovery is different. And just to try to come up with set parameters now, it's difficult to do, and they need more time to do so. I think when it comes to, the placing the bond or the lien on cargo and the vehicle and equipment, I know there's been discussion about different percentages, 10%, the 2,000 deposit. I think for them, they're performing a service, and it's something a deposit or something that it makes it really hard. They no longer have leverage to get paid, and that's a big concern for them. So I think those kind of still remain to be the sticking points. I know my client is willing to sit down with a study and try to hammer these things out and do that. I guess I would just throw out, if it's the will of the committee. I know I do have there's a couple representatives from TRPM on here. At some point, if they would have specific questions and you'd like to hear from them. But I mean, I think those are just kind of the sticking points in trying to figure out and what that right equation is. I think is something that we just feel like we need a little bit of time to do.
Okay, so let me ask this question. Is this being done differently in other parts of the state? MTA, do they have different kinds of contracts? My understanding is they do have different kind of contracts, and that they don't charge per pound. You know what? Let me just go to Lewis, and then we're going to go to Linda. We're going to go to Delegate Foley after we go to Lewis Campion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just as clarification on that issue, right, with per pound billing, no, they don't have per pound billing in Anne Arundel County. They don't have it in Harford County. They don't have it in Montgomery County, and they don't have it on the Transportation Authority roadways, where they all set rates. And we have essentially sacrificed rate setting in this bill, which is what it originally included, was rate setting by the state police in exchange for them simply filing a rate sheet. But we feel like it would be appropriate to then ban per pound billing. And with regards to the lien, let me be really clear. This is a voluntary program. No tow company has to participate in this program and be on the state police's tow list. They would still have a lien on all other tows that are not part of a state police initiated tow, or when we select the tower of choice, which should actually improve circumstances if we are allowed to make that selection, because we'll make sure we're using companies that we know treat us fairly. But we think there is still an insurance claim, very much so, and they're holding our equipment prevents us from making money. And we can't do business and deliver products if they hold our equipment and hold the cargo that we don't own. I know there are other representatives, Senator Middleton is on, representing OIDA. OIDA is on as well. But those are the two sticking points, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Delegate Foley, and then Delegate Boyce.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And we have been working very hard to try to come to an agreement here on this bill. Ms. Mansfield went through some of the, most of the agreements that have been reached. But there is one other area that the truckers agreed to, and we put it, we're willing to put it in the bill, and some of these amendments have been drafted, and that is with respect to the vehicle and this whole issue of whether there's a dispute about the bill. One, there is a dispute resolution for billing in the bill itself. that it's prescribed in the bill. And second, there also is, we have drafted language to authorize on the release of the cargo to require a 10% down payment on the invoice. So that would be like, if you consider it like good faith money, like on your, on your house, if you're buying a house. That's the way I look at it, because I don't understand a lot of this, but that's what it seems like to me. So that if there is a dispute, the towing company isn't out money, and we're also willing to work on that percentage. But the problem is that we cannot get the towing companies to come back and provide any kind of counter on that, or any kind of assurance that they would support the bill anyway, no matter how many changes we make. So, so from my point of view, my staff and I have been working hard with the two parties on this. And, I think, what Delegate Learman said is accurate, which is that, the two sticking points are the per pound billing, as has been pointed out, is done. That isn't the case in a lot of other places. And Mr. Campion ran off the list of counties where that isn't the case. And this other is the issue of holding the cargo, which, from a constituent and a consumer standpoint, that's pretty important. I don't think people want the goods that they've had shipped being held. And so we have to work out something on that. So that's where we are with it. We do have amendments drafted to take care of all of that, and as well as the issues that Ms. Mansfield outlined. Talked about some other things, but that's where we are.
My name is David.
Chairman,
Mr. Chair, you're,
Mr. Chairman.
I think
I'm sorry, you guys, I've got to take this. Regina, please go, and I'll be back.
Regina has her hand up.
Yeah.
no problem. So my biggest concern is not being paid for services already rendered. And if we can talk about that a little bit more and hammer that out, I'd appreciate it. Because the issue for me is if construction, when I have my house, construction of my house, I have to put a third down. I have to put a third down in the middle, and at the end, I have to pay the rest. So it's paid. In this case, the service already occurs. And then to say I can give you 10% of a service that I've already provided is a bit hard. But I understand the holding cargo issue, but the service has already been rendered. And so how do we solve that issue? Because it would feel like I was called to do a job, I did the job, services have been rendered, and now there's a bill, and now I can't be paid a bill, but then I can give you 10% of the invoice of a service that's already been rendered and hope I get the rest some other time. So help me with that.
Delegate, maybe I can answer it, and then maybe we can ask some of the other
yes, Delegate
on the side to answer it as well. So only if there's a dispute about the reasonableness of the amount of fees, and so that's the only time that the bill isn't paid, and the only time that happens is if. First of all, remember that there are rates that are submitted, so the truckers know, so the rates are published, they know what the rates are, they know what they are going in, okay? So the only time that's in question is if there's a dispute. And there is a dispute resolution process in the bill, but the problem isn't that the bill isn't going to be paid, although, that might happen in some cases. It's more that while that works itself out, holding on to the cargo, right? So I'm going to let maybe Senator Middleton has something to say. I'm David's back, so
yeah. Let me just jump in and
go ahead.
Thank you everyone for your patience. So I guess my big question, and then we'll go back to Delegate Boyce. Delegate Boyce, were you finished with your question? I don't want to jump ahead of you.
They were answering it. They're still answering it, but
okay,
I'll let you go ahead. I'll let you go ahead, Mr.
The only thing that I guess that I was going to ask is, if this is indeed being done by all these other counties, why is there, and being done successfully, why do we have such a hard fight to do it statewide? I think that Delegate Learman brought up a good point and Delegate Foley brought up a good point. If this is already being done, why is this tooth and nail fighting going on?
Mr. Chair, I can't find my button to raise my hand.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if Mr. Fluke could speak, I mean, he can
Mr.
speak
Fluke,
to that
go ahead,
point.
please.
All right. So here's the deal. I think that they're talking about counties that set hourly rates for towing services. I tow in two different counties, Frederick County and Washington County. I'm also familiar with Montgomery County. I heard him speak of. I'm also familiar with Anne Arundel County. They do not set rates for recoveries. In Frederick County, what happens is at the point we do a recovery and we have additional fees like price per pound billing that we're going to use for an overturned tractor trailer. Within 24 hours, we submit our bill to the county, which means we email it to the towing advisory board or the tow oversight committee. Whenever we do that, they don't do anything at all with it except for put it in a file in case there's a complaint. If there's a complaint, they have it on record. They look at it, they take their further actions that they take. But in no county that I'm aware of in the state of Maryland do they set prices for recoveries. They do have prices for towing services. Let me just explain to you real quick the difference. A tow is something that an average, maybe not an average person, but somebody could take a tow rope and pull their car or their tractor trailer with. Anything more than that is going to be a recovery, something that's in a ditch or anything like that. And I think that's mostly what we're basing our conversation in this bill on, is not towing services. It's recovery services. So I just wanted to clarify that part there because
So do the other counties don't do recovery, or are you saying all the counties that Mr. Campion mentioned are not, they don't have recovery options? They're just tow options. They don't have anything with recovery.
That's correct. The recovery pricings are not set. I mean, if you want, I can come back to you tomorrow with plenty of different handbooks that show that they do set prices within the county. They do not disallow you to charge price per pound billing, and they, the prices that they set are for towing services, and any recoveries fall under whole different circumstances because they're very complicated situations. There's no two of them that are the same.
Okay, Delegate Boyce, I didn't mean to interject, so please.
I think maybe that's, and I remember this from the hearing, it was really about also that there's the tow and then there's recovery. And then depending on who all is involved, you've got different individuals potentially responsible and different individuals who have insurances. And I thought that was apparently the confusion, but I go back to my question of if we're not talking about tow and if this is about recovery, the question is still, if I've rendered a service, if I've been called to a service, how do I get my money for a service already rendered, even if I then turn over quote unquote cargo?
Right, and I think that's where the lien or the deposit partially comes in and partially addressed.
Mr. Chairman, could I actually, Senator Middleton was going to respond, I think, but I'd be happy to address that, Delegate Boyce, because I know that we didn't get a chance really to talk about that.
Thank you so much, too.
Okay, so two issues. In your example of hiring a contractor, Delegate Boyce, you chose that contractor. You hired them. We did not hire this tow company. They were selected from a pre-approved list by the state police, where we had no role in this selection process. The bill now allows for us to have a role in the selection process with some parameters on public safety, right, and making sure a tow company can arrive in a timely fashion. If we hire that tower, then the provisions in this bill go away. They absolutely have the right still to hold our equipment. They can do that until the point that we pay their bill because we hired them. There's no choice involved for us under today's provisions, the types of tows that are covered in this bill. The state police calls the tower, they take away our equipment and our customers' cargo, and then they hold it and demand payment and don't release it until then. So that's number one. So much different than going and you hiring the contractor of your choice. Well, and then number two is there is still a legitimate insurance claim that if the claim is legitimate, it will be paid regardless of whether you are holding equipment or cargo or anything in exchange as a demand for payment. I know we're trying not to use the
So
word
when you
hostage.
say things like legitimate, there's an assumption that, again, going back to this, that all of these potential invoices are not legitimate. And two, if you're saying that you want a choice, and I might ruffle some feathers here, then why do we even have the state police calling and having a list at all? If you want to make a choice, right? If you're saying that the choice that you're getting per list isn't doing it for you, and that potentially they're a problem, then why do we have a list at all by the police? Because what I'm hearing you saying is that these folks are potentially not vetted or have a standard to which maybe you would like perhaps, and they're not doing the job. So why do we need a list at all with the state police? Why can't you just call it yourself? This whole thing would go away, right?
We'd be more than happy to eliminate the state police list and have us call a tow company of our choice.
But the problem with that, though, wouldn't there be that, I mean, this is an emergency situation and the state police are just trying to get the road cleared as quickly and safely as possible. So they're not going to call you and say, hey, do you want to call?
No, I understand. Mr. Chair, I certainly understand. And I think I'm monopolizing the luck. But just like for me, something happens to me on the side of the road, I call my insurance company or you call AAA and they send out somebody. I guess I just have to be, I guess I'm at that will to say that they are potentially sending out the best folks. And then the question then becomes, how are we vetting that these are the best folks with the best standards and with the best reputation? And I'll be done.
No, I think that's a good question because it's the state police, right? So you submit your rate sheets to the state police and then, I mean, Delegate Healy and then Mac and then we'll just keep going down the line.
Okay, actually, I can wait till after Mac speaks. I was curious as to what he might have to say, and then I'll ask my question if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Our client took very seriously your closing comment at the last work session when you said, we want to stop the discussion now. You guys go work it out and come back with us, hopefully with some type of compromise. And we took that very, very seriously. And I must give it to Andrea. She has done a yeoman's job of trying to bring the two groups together. But unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that. Despite repeated things, through Andrea, we put out that as far as the down payment, because just as Delegate Boyce said, if you're going to deliver service, you should get some payment. We have in our bill amendment 10%. We're willing to negotiate that. And we told them that we'd be willing to sit down with them because, they threw out 50, we have in 10, somewhere in there, there's probably was room for compromise. Also, on the whole issue of a study, we think that, and my client agrees with, per pound billing, if it's done right, isn't necessarily wrong. And therefore, we're certainly willing to sit down and discuss that. That's why we said, put a 1-year prohibition and let's put together a study with the appropriate parties there. That was given to Andrea to communicate to them. And, what we've gotten back from her is I can't get my clients to agree on any of those. So we haven't had a real genuine opportunity to sit down on these two big points and negotiate something out, even though Andrea knows that we said we have some flexibility on the down payment. We have some flexibility and willingness to study some of these issues, especially coming up with the appropriate guardrails around per pound billing. So we have been, I think we've bent over backwards to try to accommodate, but here we are right now saying, well, we need to study this further when we haven't had real opportunities just to sit down and try to come up with some solutions. We've been giving, and so.
Okay. Delegate Haley, did you?
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is a thorny situation, and
it is.
I do think that it's really important that the cargo issue is separated from the equipment issue, that the cargo doesn't belong to the person who's hauling it. It belongs to the people who bought it or sold it. And I don't think that they should have any claim on that at all. And I mean, that could be worked out with insurance companies or whatever, but especially if you're transporting bananas or chickens or something that is not going to, rest well in a warehouse someplace. And I just think that, and if it's something valuable, if somebody's waiting for, furniture or something that they need for their homes or their anything. I mean, consumer stuff is, I don't think that should be in dispute at all. I really don't. I think that piece should be dealt with separately. And I do see the problem with the, the towers wanting to have some kind of leverage to get paid, but I think that's what insurance is for. And also that, your contract with whoever you're hauling from, if you're in an accident, there must be ways to make provisions for that. I would, if you work in a service industry, if you provide a service, a lot of businesses work that way. You provide the service and then you're kind of at the mercy of people to pay you if you haven't, and once you've given them what they hired you to do and they decide not to pay you, you could go to court. You can ask them to pay a surcharge, a fee for being late and paying you. But most people, if you're in the service industry, if you are doing a work of art or you're doing a piece of writing, once you've done it, intellectual property, if you don't get paid, you have to go to court. And I think there's an opportunity for going to court on these kind of things as well. I just think that this is unfair to the consumer to have the cargo being held as leverage.
Chairman, thank you,
Thank you.
Healy. Could I add one more thing?
No, you need to hold. I've got
Okay,
people
thank you.
stacked up, so we'll get back to you. Andrea, you're next, and then let's go down the line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I wanted to add one more thing that I forgot to mention in previously when I was speaking, and I know insurance was referenced, and at the hearing, there was a good discussion. I think Delegate Boyce was asking questions about the level of insurance that carriers have, and also on the cargo as well as their equipment in the vehicle, and that is an issue. I mean, I do have complaints. I know Vince can probably speak to this point much better because he has helped write complaints and send those to the Airline Insurance Administration. But there are such circumstances where vehicles that are insured in other states have an accident here on our Maryland roadways, and they try to file the claim for payment, and they're being denied because they're insured in another state. And the Maryland Insurance Administration has not stepped up. They have basically said, well, these insurance companies are in another state and we don't have jurisdiction over them. I mean, they will forward a complaint to the other state, but I think, but there's really has not been recourse, and there's multiple examples of that from my understanding. So I think that just further complicates the issue. If there is a dispute and you're only receiving a percentage of the bill and insurance is not paying in all circumstances, I think that just further exacerbates the situation and also raises the concerns from my client that what are they going to do in these situations? They're just not going to get paid.
Right. And so what my return question to that would be, Andrea, is like, what are other jurisdictions doing? What are other states doing? I mean, this can't be so contentious. We can't be the only one that has this problem of towing versus recovery versus deposit. We can't be the only one we can't be the only state having this exact conversation. Mr. Floke, and then we're going to go down, and then we're going to come to some resolution here.
All right, a couple of things. So one of the delegates just said that people, they do writings and things like that, and then they're at the mercy to get paid. That's not accurate. I got my attorney drawing up a lawsuit for me right now. He's working on writing. He takes a retainer before he does that type of thing. When you guys talk about a 10% down payment deposit, by that, I would presume that you've got recovery bills that you think are only worth 10% of what the actual bill is. My point is, if you got a recovery bill for $100,000 and you think that it's only worth 50 grand, let's just say that's your worst case scenario that you've had to deal with these bills that you've submitted here, then I would say that 50% would be a more than fair number as a deposit, because after we get that 50%, we've got to chase these people down. We've got to try to drag them back into the state of Maryland to get the rest of our money. It's not an easy process to do. So that would be a question that I would have for the truckers whenever they get their chance to speak is, what's the highest bill you've gotten compared to what you think that job is worth? Because that would be the worst case scenario for a deposit in my mind, if we're going to go with a deposit. Because I can tell you, anybody who doesn't like a bill and they only have to pay 10% because they don't like it, nobody's going to like any bill. I mean, I could go on and on about that. You guys talk about legitimate claims. I've got a truck I picked up jackknifed over here on South Mountain in the snow on Saturday, and this guy is hell bent to get his stuff out of here. The problem is he hasn't contacted the broker yet because he doesn't want them to know it was in a wreck. I've got no way to know who the broker is to contact them to get the guy's insurance information. He says he's filed a claim. I don't even have a claim number yet. It's a close of business Tuesday. This happened on Saturday. There's a lot of things. And this trucker, I don't know I don't know what he's trying to do, but this is just something where he wants to get his stuff out, and the bill's not even that high. It was only a jackknife. Somebody else said something about good faith money to put down on a house. I don't even think that's similar, because with that, whether you're talking about a deposit for the mortgage or good faith money that you're going to buy it,
Mr. Cook, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, because I've posed this to Andrea on several occasions.
Okay.
All of this, my understanding, the reason we are here is because you have a couple of bad actors in the towing industry that gouged people and took advantage of the per pound towing.
Yep.
That's my understanding. As I've said to Andrea on a couple of times, and I said it last week, we are giving you, the tow companies, an opportunity to police your own business and write up something that works. So obviously not doing anything is going to be a really big problem. I can't say this enough because it doesn't seem to be getting through. I understand that there are a lot of concerns on your end. I understand that you pay close to $1 million for some of this equipment. I understand that you need to get paid for it. I get all that. But we're giving this subcommittee is giving you the opportunity to help to participate in writing a law to clean up your own industry that has bad actors in it. So I don't know how else to say this, but come up with a solution, because it's like we're down to the wire here. And if you guys can't come together and come up with a solution, we're going to come up with the worst case solution that you don't want and you don't like. But this is your industry. This is your industry that did this. So, I mean,
okay.
I'll just keep going. I'm going to go to Charles, because I know Charles is like, I see him nodding his head and rolling his eyes, and I know Charles has got stuff.
Sorry.
He wants to
I
talk
can't
about.
come back to say anything on that.
Go ahead, Vinny.
Oh, all I want to say is that we're more than willing to work with anybody to come to a conclusion. You guys have asked us to do a humongous task in a very short period of time. Okay, you've come to all the good towers to fix the bad towers problem and said you've got 3 weeks to do it, or 5 weeks, or whatever the timeline was since we found out about this. It's an unreasonable amount of time. We're asking for more time so that we can do studies. And you told us to make a decision by Tuesday. There's nothing we could have done by Tuesday. All of us, myself and Charlie and the towers, we have businesses to run. We're taking lots of time out of our businesses to try to help get this solved. But you guys have not handed us a reasonable amount of time to deal with this stuff. At the point we're given a reasonable amount of time, I'll be happy to fill my calendar with meetings to volunteer my time to help the truckers and the towers get rid of the bad apples and get things straight. But it's just unreasonable to expect something like this. The whole bill needs to be rewritten. There was nothing in that bill that we agreed to from the get-go. It's written terribly, and it needs to be rewritten. And I'll be happy to volunteer as much time as we can all put together with knowing that I got to run my business. So it's going to take more time than a couple of weeks.
I understand. And the only pushback I would say is that this has been an item for 5 to 6 weeks or more now. But anyway, let's go on to Charlie and then Pam, and then we'll go from there. Charlie, thank you. Thank you.
I agree with so much that's being said, and I'm sorry, I disagree with Vinny too. And I know you said we've had a couple of weeks to work this out. Actually, being on the legislative committee and doing this for over 30 years now, I myself have been to many Maryland motor truck functions and have had conversations, not once, not once have I ever received an email to the legislative committee. And if they sent it, I'd like to know who to. I understand all sides. I'm getting to that point where retirement's close. But like Delegate Boyce had pointed out, if we agree to a pricing index to which they don't want the price per pound, then why am I agreeing to them not paying for it? And the part about insurances, to which I've been on that committee for many years. We got it back when Mr. Redmond was there, and now there's a young lady there. I can't remember her name, so I don't want to mispronounce it, but she put out a letter that if that insurance company is not based in Maryland, they have no authority to make us pay, to make them pay us. And 30% of my bills don't get paid at all. I'm not going to waste legal fees because they're $450 an hour. And with the courts backed up, it's taking me a lot. So I stopped it altogether, trying to even collect on them. And then there's some of the bills that I get, which is why I've asked for a study to be included with everything, insurance companies, everybody on this payment, including the trucker side overpaying. I don't agree with that, but that they should have to overpay. You're totally right. We do have road towers in all industry throughout the towing industry, but there's got to be a fair and reasonable compromise. And that's how I started this conversation when the bill first came out. And that's not being done. You want to tell us how to price you, and then you want to tell us that if there's a dispute, I'm not going to pay you. Well, you're going to dispute it. I go to the store. I don't like paying $14 for a steak, but I got to pay it. And then I can always go to court. I'm not going to win, but I mean, it's the same thing. Just give us some time. And there should be face-to-face. We were supposed to have a meeting. They restricted how many people. We asked for 3 of each side. They said no. They didn't want 3 of each side.
Okay.
So, I mean, give us a chance. Give us a chance.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pam. Pam Casemeyer going once, Pam Casemeyer.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I
Pam
didn't.
Case-
Hello?
Pam Casemeyer.
I'm sorry, and my video is not working. I really apologize for having my picture, but I can't get my video to work for some reason.
That's okay. Do you have something to add?
And I don't want to repeat a lot of what you've heard already, and I think Lewis and everyone has done a good job in terms of really talking through where we've given from where we started. Maybe I just want to go back and remind the committee members, this is a voluntary program. Not a single towing company is required to be on the Maryland State tow list. If they don't like the rules of what we set up, they do not need to participate. And it doesn't mean that we don't have to be reasonable in how we set up the program, but this isn't going to apply to towing across the board. This is only going to apply to a towing company that chooses to participate on the Maryland State Police tow list to get called when they have an emergency and need someone to be towed. That's analogous. What we're setting up here is actually much more generous and more flexible than the Maryland Transportation Authority, but it's very analogous in that Maryland Transportation Authority framework is not mandatory, it's voluntary. They have much more restrictive rates. They have rates. We're getting rid of setting rates. They have a number of rules, but yet they have companies that sign up to participate. We are saying we are going to get rid of and give on many of the provisions already existing in the Transportation Authority program to make this much more flexible. We're not setting rates. We're asking them to provide them so we know what they are. We're clarifying that they can't have a lien on our cargo. We're doing those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, if a company looks at that structure and says, I'm not sure it's worth it, then they don't have to be on the list. And
I understand, Pam. And the only
so I'm sorry to repeat myself, but I think that gets lost.
Pam, I think that that's a good point. The only pushback I would have is that oftentimes these companies have invested millions of dollars in equipment, and that now you're saying, well, you don't have to participate. Yet they have stock of millions of dollars worth of equipment that they're not going to participate because they can't make money. So I don't know that it's quite as simple as you're saying. I think it's a good point, but I don't know that it's quite as simple. Mac, you're up.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Listen, we've had this discussion internally. We don't want to do anything that puts these towing businesses out of business. We need them. The public needs them. The state police need them to move these heavy-duty trucks that are impeding traffic, and the public safety is there. You know what their suggestion is. And this whole entire thing with the overbilling by a few bad actors isn't something that has just started. It's been going on for years. And you can believe or not believe the testimony that Maryland Motor Truck has given you. And when we had the bill hearing about repeated attempts from one CEO to another CEO of sitting down and trying to resolve this issue, to no avail. It has not happened. It has not happened. You know, the discussions that we've had since the last time we had this work session have been trying to find some ways to address the issues that the towing companies have raised. You know, we have offered, you know, to meet them somewhere to discuss this down payment. We really truly think, you know, if you've rendered a service, you ought to be paid. And to come up with, if we're going to say no to put a prohibition to per pound billing and no liens, then they have a reasonable expectation that they get paid for their service. We're very willing. It doesn't take a whole year to come to some compromise about what the appropriate down payment ought to be, but they have refused to meet with us. And the whole entire thing that Andrea brought up about the insurance, we had verbal discussions with Andrea to take back to their membership that we would love to do a study that would take in a whole number of things. You know, how do we put appropriate guardrails into per pound billing? If we can come to that, then we'll go back to per pound billing, because it could be a better way for some of these towing companies than ours and whatnot. So we've made that. We want to look at that insurance company. We suggested that we have a task force or a study that brings in the Maryland Insurance Administration to look at this. We've talked about the guardrails. We've also talked about looking at some of the statistics of how it's been abused, what the rates are. We also want to make sure that we have adequate towers. How many towers are still signed up with it? We put all of that out to be put into a study. I don't know how much more willing we can possibly be to meet them, recognizing their needs and recognizing our needs. What they're suggesting, Mr. Chairman, the members of the committee, is another opportunity, another year to say, well, let's study it when they can continue to allow these bad actors, and not all of them are good. And this doesn't happen, you know, with every towing company. They're saying, give us another year that we can continue to.
So maybe
opposed to dealing with it right now, coming up with some resolution.
Okay.
And we really and truly think that the amendments that we've offered them and that we have offered the sponsor and you, Mr. Chairman, are a reasonable approach. It's a fair and balanced approach. What we think what we put on the table.
All right, let me, Linda, you're going to get the last word. So I'm going to jump over because it's your bill. I want to go to Delegate Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we've heard a lot about this bill multiple times at this point. I'm very disappointed to hear that certain parties wouldn't come to the table. So, Mr. Chair, what I'm going to say, unfortunately, Mr. Fluke, this is the way the legislative process happens. We have a short session. So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask that, I'm going to offer that we give them another 24 hours, and tomorrow I'm going to move the amendments as they have been brought to us, unless the parties have sat down and come to some other agreement. Because I think the amendments that have been brought forward have been thoughtful and reasonable, and I appreciate the efforts that have been made.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Love. The other thing I was going to suggest too is that, you know what, I'm going to hold my thought because people's minds are going to blow up. Mike.
Thank you very much. I hope you guys can hear me okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to add a few things. Per pound billing is not an industry standard. In fact, it's not really used outside of Maryland, Virginia, and Wyoming. Those are three states that come to mind when I think of per pound billing. And those are three states that have a lot of issues. It's complicated, but other states already address this stuff. It's regulated in other states. Those regulations work. The other thing I want to add is just imagine for a minute if there were no regulations on the light duty side of things, right? If you illegally park your car in Baltimore or Annapolis or pretty much any, municipality across the country, if there were no regulations in place, what would invoices look like for motorists, right? And why were those regulations developed to begin with? Because there was a problem with towing companies taking advantage of people on non-consensual tows. And there's more than one type of non-consensual tow, but that's why you have regulations to begin with. And on the heavy duty stuff in Maryland, it is virtually unregulated. There are a few rules here and there, but in effect, it's an unregulated industry. And that's why towing companies in Maryland, and more than just a few, by the way, it's more than just a few bad actors, have been taking advantage of this for years. And the last point I want to make is, we're not disputing bills that are, maybe inflated by a few $1,000s. The bills that we have problems with that we really go after are ones that are inflated by tens of thousands of dollars. And there is virtually no recourse whatsoever in Maryland when you find yourself in that situation. Yes, you can go to court. We've done that. It doesn't work. It costs a lot of money. It takes years to settle. What we've come up with is very reasonable. Other states already addressing it. It can be done without towing companies going out of business because we see that elsewhere. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, Mr. Campion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, there's a lot of conversation about getting paid for the service. We don't get paid for the service immediately. It's not when you drop a load that they hand you a check for that payment. There are numerous industries that don't get paid immediately at the completion of the service. Trucking, one of them. Household goods movers, they don't have a lien on your household goods. We actually represent the household goods movers. They're in our membership. And if you deliver someone's household goods, they can refuse to pay you, and we cannot hold their goods hostage. And what happens? People pay the bill still because people want to pay reasonable bills. And the last thing I will say, Mr. Chairman, is with regards to this sit down and talk, and I've never heard anything. I can tell you my first conversation with TRPM was August 14th, 2015. It also involved OIDA. It's been 7 years, Mr. Chairman. How long did they think we could continue to take it before we finally pursued an action? Thank you.
Okay. Delegate Foley, I'm going to let you talk and then we'll have the last word. Go ahead. So
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo some of the things that have been said here by the delegates on this committee. I also want to point out that my staff has spent many hours trying to bring the two parties together and trying to talk to get some resolution here. And we have the same problem. We cannot get a counter proposal. And at some point, you keep changing the bill. And as Delegate Love pointed out, there are substantial changes in this bill to address some of these concerns. And I think from my point of view, we might even be willing to make more, but not going on forever and ever. So I just want to echo what Delegate Love said, what Delegate Learman said, what Delegate Healy said. This is a problem with this cargo. The whole notion of this cargo being used as leverage is a problem. And it's a problem that needs to be fixed. We're legislators. We're trying to fix it as legislators. So I hope, Mr. Chairman, that you take Delegate Love up on her suggestion that we give these folks 24 more hours, and then tomorrow we vote out a bill, or not, but we propose a bill, move a bill that includes the amendments that we have so far and get moving. The Senate is ready to move on this. They're waiting for us. So
this is what I would propose. I think that we should do exactly what we just talked about doing. In the meantime, Delegate Foley, I do have another idea that I want to run past you first to see what your thoughts are on it before I unleash this idea. And I also want to I want to have a significant conversation with the chair of our committee, because this has been, as Delegate Love mentioned, I think we have spent more time on this bill than any other bill this session. We're gonna conclude for the night. And Delegate Foley, if you get a second, pop over. And I would say Andrea and Lewis and Mac and whoever else, please put in your last and final efforts, and then we'll also we'll work on it on our side. We are going to hold 8:11 simply because I don't want to have a big argument with Delegate Love tonight. I'm too tired to do that. So, so with that said, I want to thank everybody for being out here. We got some good work done. We've had some good conversation. So thank you all. There'll be more to come for tomorrow and Thursday. We still have a lot of bills to go through, but we're going to get them all out.